Hello everyone, welcome. My name is Richard Capone. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Let's Go Learn, and welcome to today's webinar, Essential Strategies for Math and Reading Tutors. So today we have an action-packed webinar. It's going to take about 30 minutes. So agenda, I'm just going to do one slide on who Let's Go Learn is, then I'm going to be showing you some slides about our platform and then doing a demo. Basically, I will be covering also in the demo the reports I think that are very pertinent to tutors, as well as some other tools. And then we'll open it up to questions. So first of all, who's Let's Go Learn? So Let's Go Learn, I founded the company back in 2000 with Dr. McCollum from UC Berkeley. And at the time, he ran the reading credential program at UC Berkeley. And our goal was to create a tool that could diagnose students online and really answer the questions of why is a student struggling or why are they doing well. And so this is exactly what you do as a tutor, right? You need to find out why is this student struggling, which is usually why maybe they're coming to you in the first place, or even if they're advanced, how can I supplement their skills? And so this has always been our guiding principle. I think is really much in line with what you all do. So first of all, what is Let's Go Learn? So we are an online platform. We have reading and math diagnostic assessments that are very, very precise. And when students take that, we automatically are looking for instructional points. And then we create prescriptive reports. We create ability to group. And then, of course, we also have online courses that are created for each student. Now, this is a little different for you all because you're tutors, and so a lot of the instruction may be your direct instruction. But we also offer an opportunity for you to use some of our online tools as a supplement. So I will be talking about that. And we do have tutor customers who are using us, some just for the reports and some are using it also for the instruction. But this is essentially what we are, okay? Now we also have a formative option as well, which is really a quiz bank. So you can test specific skills. So there's pre-made quizzes that are valid and reliable. So you can test different things. And not a lot of tutors know about that. So I will be talking about the formative assessment platform too. Okay, so how does Let's Go Learn really support you? So first of all, our reports, our grading, are grade level scores, which are really nice. It means that they're grade level independent. So even if somebody's in the 5th grade, we're going to reflect their skill across the K-12 range. This means that it's great for measuring growth, and it's also very understandable by parents. If you just tell a parent or someone, oh, your child is at a 40th percentile in reading, that doesn't really mean a lot to them. They need to sort of have a score that's relative to grade levels, which is easier to understand. We also have a lot of prescriptive reports. We have skills gap focus reports as well, and then we have the supplemental instruction. So these are sort of the actionable tools that I'm going to be covering today. So how does it work in your workflow? So the way it would work is initially you would be doing a diagnostic assessment. You would give it to the students when you have a student you want to find out more about. And it could be either in reading and math. I sort of listed some of the special education items in here. Not that you're necessarily using it, but I would say that when you're working with a student, you want an individual student plan. And so in special ed, we call that present levels. So we find those present levels. And then you would use the reports to really find out, what do I work on next? And that really, you could pull all that information out based on the reports. Now, some of that's just going to be for you to guide you in your tutoring, or some of it could be something you share with a parent as well. And then next, you would be using it. You could be using it as a supplement. You can assign individual lessons that you want to assign, or you can create an automated course as well. Or of course, the instruction is going to be you. And then the 4th step is quizzes. If you want to do quizzing, you can. You could actually queue up quizzes to find out, okay, did the student really understand this? And maybe the first 10, 15 minutes they come with you, they're doing these quizzes to verify skills mastery. And then, of course, you have great reports. Now, this is really powerful. I think it's great for parents to be able to see, hey, what kind of progress is my student making, my child? And this is going to be powerful. I'm going to show this to you as well. Okay, so what is the secret sauce? Why do we work and why are we different? We really find out where the student's zone of proximal development is. So that means where do we really need to start instruction? And this is key. And the way we do this is because we're built on a diagnostic model of assessment. So this is just showing mathematics. We break mathematics in our ADAM assessment to 44 subtests. And within each one, the way our assessment works, it goes up and down until it finds an instructional point. So even if the student is a 6th grader, it'll go down, 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 down until it finds that instructional point within the scope and sequence of fractions, right? So we do this across all these subtests. And let me give you an example in place value. So within place value, technically place value is made up of these skills: ones and tens, hundredths, thousands, 10,000 expanded forms, and all the way up to decimal place value, right? So this student has tested right here. This is their ceiling condition. So it means that they've mastered these skills, and now they need to work on these two next. And in our assessment, when we test the student on something, we don't just give them one question. This student has mastered a set of items right here, and they had a non-mastery on this set of items. So there's actually a quiz they were received, and they have a mastery and non-mastery. So we are granular. So when I say we're a diagnostic model assessment, it means we are granular at the skill concept level, which most assessments are not. Okay, this is very different. Same thing in reading. Reading has less subtests: high frequency words, phonics, word recognition, spelling, vocabulary comprehension, and then we have a phonemic awareness breakout too. So hopefully that makes sense. I think it's important to sort of explain that. And this is really what I'm explaining, is that we're a very precise diagnostic assessment. All right, then as far as the supplemental instruction we have, what we try to do there is we really try to combine engagement, motivation, and cognitive load, right, to optimize learning. So cognitive load really is talking about giving the student the right lesson at the right point. Now you do this naturally as a tutor, but we also are going to help you with our assessments. And then, of course, these other elements here, we have music in our lessons, we have voice, stress, and intonation. There's lots of different user interfaces, there's gamification. So all of this really makes our lessons optimized, especially for those students who maybe struggled to begin with and didn't learn something the first time. All right, so it's a great supplemental tool for you as well. This is the way the lessons look. They introduce a concept within a few minutes, and then there's a song to reinforce that concept, and then there's gamification, practice, and then there's corrective feedback. So if someone gets something wrong, it'll tell you why it's wrong and what you need to do in order to get the correct answer, and then it moves on. So this is a great format. Again, sometimes students they like this, and it's something you may not necessarily use with all your students, but it's an option. The other thing too is if you do find out, oh, I know Richard needs to learn short vowel, you can also assign lessons by just simply, grabbing a group of students or a single student, choosing the lesson, you search for short vowel, you select short vowel, and then you assign it. So you can actually give these great little assignments, and all of our lessons are very bite-sized, right? They're 10 to 15-minute lessons that teach a very specific skill or concept. Okay, so let me jump into the demo. So I'm logged into a class. This class has data in it. It's you would have your own account. It would be just your students, and in a sense, you're like your own mini school. Once they're done assessing, I would come over to either ELA or math, which is the math or reading scores. So let's go into ELA first. And now I could choose my class. So let me just change my class here. Sorry about that. Okay, so here's a group of students. As I roll my mouse over, I see that we're breaking reading into high frequency words, word recognition, phonics, phonemic awareness, spelling, vocabulary comprehension. And within each one, we find that mastery point, the ceiling condition. So a green means they've mastered that subtest. So this student has mastered sight words and mastered phonics. Looks like they're a pretty strong decoder, but they're really low in vocabulary and comprehension. So right off the bat, this tells me I need to work on comprehension strategies as well as getting their vocabulary up, right? So I know exactly what to do. If you want to be able to, get a little more of a descriptive understanding of that, you could go to a report and you select the teacher-parent report. So this is something you could also share. So it talks about how Deanna reads words, and it's going to be recognizing her strength in decoding, how she understands words, and then how she pulls it all together. So this profile here is descriptive of what you need to do, and it basically says you need to be working on vocabulary and comprehension strategies. So it's a pretty amazing report. This is one of the reports that are really, really powerful. The other thing you could do too is if you want to say specifically, okay, let's say you have a group of students and you want to know, well, what does this mean? They're at 4.83 or 1.17. I could go into phonics and say, let me take a look at the instructional report. And now here, these are all my students. And this is maybe if you're working with a group of students. I know you're not always necessarily doing that, but these students here have mastered phonics. These students are all working on beginning sounds. And these students, this one student is working on diphthongs, right? So this is where I was saying if you wanted to assign something, you could. You could say, okay, Daryl, we're going to assign you a diphthongs lesson. And I'd go ahead and it's assigned. He's selected right over here. I could add some other students if I wanted to. And then I would choose my lesson. I do know there's a specific breakout for short vowel, but for diphthongs, it's actually a slightly different one, so we'd have to know which one. So sometimes there's a little bit of lookup you may need to do. But anyway, here it is. I would find the lesson I want, and then I could even preview it to make sure it's covering what I want to do, and then I'd hit next, and then I would put a title, give it a due date, and some instructions. Please complete before our next tutoring session on Friday, right? So I could put that in there. All right. Hopefully that makes sense. Let me go back to this main report. Okay, so there's some other stuff here as well. You know, there's a weighted score, a Lexile score. So this is an overall reading score. If I want to look at a student over time, let's say it's somebody I've been working with and I've given them multiple tests, I can click on progress monitoring. And now I could see their scores. Okay, so this is what's sort of cool. These are the raw scores are in white, so I could select the raw scores and I could actually graph it. Right? Now the weird thing about testing is sometimes kids go up and down, right? You know how it is. Kids are they're the biggest variability in testing because they just get tired or sometimes they don't want to try as hard. And so this sort of complicated. It looks like the student really went up in high frequency words, but in phonics they went down the second time they took it. If I don't want to have that conversation, we have something that does the high score for the year. So I can actually graph just the end of the week snapshot, which is a little different. And now this one just sort of keeps the running high score. So this is a great report to share with the parent for progress. Overall, their weighted score went up, so the student's making progress. And you know, phonics they've always been mastered, and their sight words went up. But it's a great way to not have to have that conversation about statistical error, right? So again, there's also a video to help explain this later on, but this is one of those nice tools that a tutor would want to have when you're having conversations with parents, right? All right, let me jump over into math. So math is a lot more complicated in the sense that most people don't have the time to diagnose what's going on when somebody's struggling. And I'd say a middle schooler is a very common area to struggle. So here we see the total score and we see the strand scores, numbers and operations, measurements, data, geometry, algebraic thinking. These still are all very, very general. They're summative, so they really wouldn't guide you on what to do. But if I wanted to say, let's start working on numbers and operations first, because this is a very important area, I would click on numbers and operations, and now I could see specifically for Deanna, what does that mean, right? So I could go ahead and look at the summary report. And on the summary report, I could see exactly where she is at, right? So within numbers, Deanna can correctly round to the nearest tens, hundreds, and thousands. Great. She's got a 4.9 score. Within place value, 3.9. Comparing and ordering, 3.9. So we see where she is at, and we see the red arrows are the low area. So these are the areas of focus because they're below grade level. It goes across the whole thing. So this is fantastic. And as a tutor, in theory, you would know Deanna can identify equivalent fractions, so then you know what to work next. Now, if you don't necessarily what that is, if you want it spelled out, I might go to the full report right here. And now I see the full scope and sequence of everything. So this report is 15 pages. Okay, so it's very long. You may not print out the whole thing, but place value goes from ones, tens, hundreds, expanded form, thousands, 10,000s, and decimal. The student's right here. And so I need to work on these two skills next. Now, fractions, we were just looking at fractions. Here's the scope and sequence of fractions. And we talked about, she understood equivalent fractions, but now we need to work on comparing fractions right here. Right, so this is the instructional point. So again, this is a really, really fantastic report. It really spells it all out for the student. Very prescriptive. Now, our automated instructional system uses this to create that live course that fills in the gaps. But of course, I think, a tutor is also going to be able to direct it more, because you could say, well, look, the priority right now is we've got some stuff happening and we need to be able to catch up in this area. So that's where you would be able to direct it by assigning lessons. Any lesson you assign that the student does is pulled out of the automated course. So if you assign some lessons for the student to do early, once they master those lessons, it gets yanked out of the automated course that we have. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Now, the other piece that not a lot of tutors know about, but we also have something called formative assessment. And this is really, really cool. Now, you do have to have a full client code account to do this. So it's not available for the normal, if someone just buys a base account off of our e-commerce, you would have to talk to our customer service and make sure you get a client code. I know we have a lot of Tutor Doctor customers out there, and you guys have the client code account. So let me go to the test queue, and I could take a look at a student, and I could add an individual test, or I could just go to class, and I can go ahead and view queue. So let's view queue for Deanna. So what happens is you would assign a full assessment. So let's say I want to do a full reading assessment right here, or full math assessment. But at times you may say, well, they've done the full assessment, and now I just want to test them on something I taught them. So before I talked about diphthongs, so here it is. I can queue up just this one quiz. It's going to be, 5 to 10 questions. It's going to test them on that skill. So that's a definition of formative. I taught them something. Did they learn it? So I could just go ahead and grab those skills and queue it up. I could also do anything in math. So let's say decimal place value. Right. So again, I could queue those up. Now here's the cool thing about formative. Any quiz I assign, that data lays on top of the baseline data. And if they moved up in phonics or place value, it would recalculate your total score for math and reading. And so you have a running total score that grows over time. So you can have growth measurement without having to do a full assessment, because a full assessment takes more time. So you'd want to do it when you first meet with a student, and then you would do it, you do a bunch of quizzes as you're working on things, but you can always get that recalculated total score. And that's very unique to our system. Now there's one other thing here, subtest diagnostic. So if you are working in phonics, phonics is made up of lots of skills. I taught short vowel, I taught long vowel, I taught diphthongs, and then I just want to do all of phonics again and have it find the new high point through an adaptive subtest. I could then just queue up phonics, and it would queue it up and try to find a new high point, okay? Again, I know I'm getting very technical. My assumption is most tutors like yourself are technical. You understand this content, and so I can get a little more technical with you all. That is sort of it in a nutshell. The one other thing I'll show you, if I go to Edge and you have that on, there is a whiteboard. So this is all of our lessons we have within English language arts, right? That we have grammar lessons, we've got writing lessons, all sorts of stuff in here. You can see them. And then also all of the math lessons here too, right? We have lots of stuff here. So you can actually view these and assign these as well to your students. Okay, let me go back to my slides real quickly. And all right, so I'm going to take questions now, but here is a QR code. If any of you have questions, you're already in our system if you signed up, but if you want to actually talk to one of our educational consultants, go ahead and scan that code and put in your question, like, if you have something very specific, and then they'll contact you and we'll get you started. But let's go ahead and see if there are any questions. Here's the first question I see. How long does the DORA assessment take, as well as the ADAM assessment? So the DORA assessment is going to vary. Like a kindergartner may only take 15 minutes or 10 minutes, but somebody who's in high school, maybe take about an hour. And also it is adaptive, so depending on how, some students take a long time to test, some take less. The math assessment, ADAM, it takes anywhere from, again, 10, 15 minutes up to possibly an hour and a half for those middle school math students who have a lot of gaps, right? Now, also, the first time you take an assessment, it's longer, but when you take subsequent testings, it's shorter. You can stop the assessment and restart it at any time. So it's good to monitor somebody. I think it's always important, and also to tell them why they're taking the assessment. Hey, this is something to help us find your gaps and help strengthen you in the area of mathematics or reading, right? What is the best way for tutors to purchase your product? So you can buy everything online. We have our e-commerce, but if you do want to use the formative assessment, you would have to contact customer service to make sure you have an org code. So when you log in, it says your username, your password, and your school code. The formative requires the school code because it's sort of an upgraded account. But once you have your account set up, you could always buy on our e-commerce. Okay. As a tutor, will I set up one class for all my students, or would I set up separate classes for different groups? So really, the classes you have to think about are groups. You may want to have one class just call, all students, and you just bring all your students in there. But you can have students in separate classes, right? Because you may want to, maybe some students come on the same day, you work with them on Thursdays. You could say my Thursday students, but students can be in multiple classes. So it's very easy. You go in there and we have all sorts of great tutorials. Actually, let me just show this to you real quickly. Make sure. If we go back and take a look right here, when you go onto the Home tab, there are a bunch of videos, on-demand courses. These are just on-demand videos. How do I create a class? How do I queue up an assessment? So they're all there. We also have another video library, which is more deeper understanding. How do I understand a certain report? So lots of great stuff there, okay? What are the profiles in Dora? In Dora, we had something, I think I told you it was called the profile. So in a sense, we put all students into these profile letters. That's A through H. And so if I click on class profile, it sort of tells you, if you break all those subtests into decoding, vocabulary, and comprehension, if somebody is low in all three, they're in group A. If somebody is high in decoding but low in vocabulary and comprehension, that's a group D. So that's what those profile letters are. It's sort of like a reading group. And because typically I think teachers think about, we're going to work with our low decoding group, or we're going to work with our low comprehension strategy group. And it's a way of grouping students. And it depends really, if you're doing a one-on-one tutoring, it may not apply to you as much, but it is useful sometimes if you want to just try to align content you have or strategies with a particular student. So if I click on the C category, okay, I don't have any students in that category, sorry. If I click on the A category, I can see here's all the students who are following in. They're low in all areas, okay? All right, so we have another question here that just popped up. How does Adam and the total score work when students do follow-up quizzing? So, okay, so I think I answered that, but so essentially, if I take a look, go back to the Adam page or ActiPulse Math, on the summary, we have a total score. This total score is really made up of all of these individual subtests, right? So we have a weighted average. So it looks at, let's take a look at numbers and operations. So it takes all these scores and it really weights them all together and rolls them up into individual subtests, and that generates this score. So when you do subsequent testing, if any of these things are affected, so if you just do a geometry strand test, or you do some quizzes within geometry and it raises the score, that recalculates the total score, forces a recalculation. And that's why this progress monitoring right here is really powerful. If I come here, I could say, okay, let's take a look at our growth for this student. Beginning of 6th grade, and now we're at 6.6. We now are showing growth. So this is, you can show the parent, hey, your child went from 4.0 to 4.6, right? It's very definitive, very concrete growth. We're translating specific skills and teaching, and it's measurable. And so you don't really even have to think about it. It's quite powerful. And I think this is one of the really nicely kept secrets of our system. It's this reporting system. And I think right down here too, we have more information on it. So if you want to understand how do I explain this, I think this links to a knowledge base article. So we try to put contextual help throughout the system. There is an option to rebrand. So if you want the reports to have your logo on it, we do have a program for that. I know some tutor doctors take advantage of that, but if somebody else wanted to rebrand some of the reports, so if you give it to a parent, it's got your company name on it, that's something that's possible too. So you'd have to just put that into the comments when you talk to someone at our company. All right, thank you so much, and hope you have a good day.